Welcome to Amir Shakil 5858, the War and Love Report. I am Amir Goodnam. In South Korea, Scouts pack up and leave in buses in Bungwon as organizer of the World Scout Jamboree asked hosts Monday to urgently evacuate tens of thousands of children from their campsites ahead of a typhoon just days after a heat wave caused mass scout illnesses. National Weather Service said the Washington D.C. area was under a tornado watch until 9 p.m. Eastern Time, with significant threats of locally destructive straight-line winds. U.S. government offices in the area closed early due to the severe storm threat and tornado watch. A charter bus crashed in Pennsylvania, at least 3 killed. The severe storms and tornado watches up and down the east coast. As we come on the air, the threats of tornadoes, heavy rain, and flash floods, more than 30 million at risk, major disruptions to air travel, more than 6,000 flights cancelled or delayed, ground staff in Atlanta, Baltimore, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., and New York. In D.C., federal offices are closing. Early danger on the roads. A severe weather on the march in the east tonight, forcing thousands of flights delays and cancellation in Washington, D.C. The government allowed federal workers to go home early today. D.C. under a tornado watch until mid-evening. The Storm Prediction Center warning of a widespread damaging wind event this evening. The line of storms on a track from Mississippi to Maine. Heavy rain, flash flooding, and large hail in the forecast. Airports are, including New York and Philadelphia, experiencing ground stops tonight. All this being ushered in by a cold front as blistering heat brings continuing trouble across much of the rest of the country. People in the Washington have not received a storm warning like this in more than a decade. A storm with potential dactyl-like impact of lightning and gusty winds that's now descending right here onto the east coast. The summer of severe weather from coast to coast is raging on. Wild weather closing in forecast to bring the strongest storms in a decade to the nation's capital, including damaging winds, tornadoes, heavy rains, and hail, forcing government buildings around Washington, D.C. to shut down, sending all federal employees home this afternoon. In Southern California, authorities are investigating why two helicopters fighting a fire collided last night. One of the choppers crashed, killing two fire officials and the pilot. The other chopper able to land safely with two people on board. The chopper were involved in efforts to contain a small brush fire in Riverside County. Lawyers for former President Trump fighting back after a request by the special counsel for a protective order concerning evidence in that case involving the 2020 election. Mr. Trump said that it means we cannot ever criticize, ever. Trump lawyers argue that it violates his First Amendment rights. Was it does so against his administration's primary political opponent during an election season. The special counsel asked the court to in effect put up guard rails to protect the government's evidence, a consequence of Mr. Trump's prolific social posts, among them, "If you go after me, I will come after you." Special counsel writes it could have a harmful, chilling effect on witnesses or adversely affect the fair administration of justice in this case. Mr. Trump filing office Mr. Trump filing off his own response, "No, I should not have a protective order placed on me because it would impinge upon my right to free speech." Trump attorney John Morrow said that Mr. Trump had every to petition government and enforce his First Amendment rights, and made headlines when he described Mr. Trump's pressure on Pence to halt the electoral count, a technical violation of the Constitution. Is not a violation of criminal law. That's just plain wrong. The Mr. Trump legal team argues a court order should focus on only the most sensitive government documents and not restrict Mr. Trump. All of the evidence the judge could rule at any time. Republican presidential candidate Florida Governor Ron DeSantis predicting success despite struggling gained traction against the Republican front-runner. When somebody asks, is it possible that you are potentially just out of step with what GOP voters are looking forward, rather for right? DeSantis replied that if he had a nickel for every naysayer I have had in my life, I would be a very, very wealthy man. When asked, is Trump's statements harming the Republican? DeSantis replied, if the election is a referendum on Joe Biden's policies and the failure that we have seen, and I am presenting a positive vision for the future. We will win the presidency if, on the other hand, the election is not about January 20th, 2025, but January 6th, 2020, rather 2021, or what document was left by the toilet at Mar-a-Lago, if it's a referendum on that, we are going to lose. When asked, did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election, DeSantis replied that whoever puts their hand on the Bible on January 20th every 4 years is the winner. DeSantis said he would use lethal force if required to deal with drug cartels of Mexico at the border. He believes there are certain rules of engagement which have to be followed. DeSantis. Today, Ukrainian officials say that a woman has been arrested in a plot to assassinate President Zelensky, and there are alarming new developments involving joint Russian and Chinese patrols of the U.S. coast here. Woman was captured while carrying out a plot to assassinate President Zelensky during this trip to Malacca last month. She was allegedly tracking his movements so he could be targeted with a Russian airstrike. Kremlin so far has not commented on the accusations. Ukraine counter-offensive is stalled, so is pushing the war beyond its borders. In response to this, Putin and China are projecting their power abroad to sending an alarming new message to the United States. A patrol of 11 Chinese and Russian warships cruised together near Alaska. Pentagon said there was no direct threat, but sending 4 destroyers and a reconnaissance plane as a warning. The threat to Alaska is growing. A military officer in Alaska said that Chinese threat is ever increasing. He also watched the cooperation between Russia and China. The China says he has no uh, bad. Due to rising tensions in Persian Gulf, U.S. deployed thousands of military personnel and 2 ships to protect oil tankers. 2 U.S. warships with more than 3,000 U.S. sailors and Marines are now in the Red Sea, ordered to move to Persian Gulf after Iranian naval vessels tried to stop board and seize 2 oil tankers near the Strait of Hormuz last month, even firing on one and striking one of those ships. In both cases, the Iranian boats turned away after a U.S. military ship and aircraft arrived. That followed an April incident when masked Iranian commandos seized an oil tanker in the Gulf of Oman. Iran's foreign ministry says U.S. presence only fuels instability in the region. Iran has either seized or attempted to seize nearly 20 ships in the past 2 years. There was a fire broke out in Sherwin-Williams paint factory outside Dallas, Texas. One person injured. The cause of fire is under investigation. A violent brawl in Alabama was captured on video that appeared to involve a group of white boaters attacking a black dock worker. Tonight, police have issued arrest warrants in the case. Outrage is going across the country over these now viral videos appearing to show more than a dozen people in an all-out brawl on the downtown Montgomery, Alabama riverfront. No arrests have been made so far. The mayor says the investigators has issued 4 arrest warrants and say they are reviewing all the videos of the incident and that more could be coming. According to mayor, it's something that shouldn't have happened and that we are investigating right now. This happened on Saturday, right after witness says a worker asked a group multiple times to move their pontoon so a commercial riverboat could dock. A woman board on the riverboat filmed the whole video. In the occupied West Bank, Israeli forces have killed 3 Palestinians over the weekend and 3 people were shot dead on Sunday after Israeli forces opened fire on their vehicle at the Jenin refugee camp. 2 days ago, 18-year-old Mahmoud was killed by Israeli forces during a raid in the city of Tukara. Later on Friday, 19-year-old Kurusal Martin was murdered by armed Israeli settlers who stormed the village of Burqa near Ramallah. 2 suspects have been arrested. Ramallah's governor cited the complicity of the international community abuses against Palestinians. A statement after the killing. In Niger, leaders of the military coup have shut down the country's airspace, citing possible imminent military action from their neighbors after a Sunday deadline to reinstate the ousted President Mohamed Bazoum expired. The deadline was issued by the West African bloc ECOWAS, which has condemned the coup alongside international powers including the US and the former colonizer France. But many Nigerians have voiced support for the military leaders and strongly reject any foreign intervention. Protesters have been taking to the streets since the July 26 coup. Coup leader says if ECOWAS or French forces decide to attack our country before reaching the presidential palace, they will have to walk over our bodies, spill their blood, and they will do it with pride because they don't have another country. They only have Niger. Since July 26, our country has decided to take charge of its independence and sovereignty, and this is our way of demonstrating it. Media reported this weekend Nigeria's coup generals requested defense help from the Russian mercenary, the Wagner Group, in the face of possible military intervention. Burkina Faso and Mali also been taken over by the military following coups previously warned any attacks on Nigeria would be tantamount to a declaration of war against their countries as well. Niger is a major supplier of uranium to France and the European Union. Two news from Pakistan. Former Prime Minister Mr. Imran Khan has been sent to the jail on the order of the court for corruption charges in gift cases. There's a train derailment occur in southern Pakistan province of Sindh in which at least 60 people have died. The train has 1,000 passengers on board. Rescue efforts are continue. In India, opposition leader Rahul Gandhi has been reinstated to the parliament after Supreme Court of India suspended his defamation. He was sentenced for 2 years by a lower court for defaming Mr. Modi, the Prime Minister. The suspension intends is mean that Mr. Rahul can run against Mr. Modi in the next elections. I am thankful to all news resources for their continuous cooperation. I am also thankful to the viewers for their privilege of time. Have a good night.